yes here. What's up, everybody? Thank you for being here with us, as you always are on a hump day. We have got the Jock Market NBA Show. Adam Kaufman, Geoff Ulrich coming at you for a hard-hitting, fast-paced 25-minute show where we will go over all things in terms of Jock Market, who you should be bidding up on, who you should be looking at, who you think is going to be a good play tonight. What I'm excited about here, Moose, most of all, obviously I love talking NBA. I love talking NBA with you, but what really gets me going, what really gets the juices flowing is, I mean, if we had done the show yesterday, measly little nothing 3-game slate, you know, there's only so much to get into there. Right here, we can do a full dissection. We got 13 games. This is a huge palette for us to sink our teeth into.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, obviously, you know, we're talking Jock Market guys who are going to be looking at potentially busy and good targets tonight in their their IPOs and stuff. So we're going to try and, you know, really focus in on our favorite plays. But yeah, we do have a lot of games obviously to pick from. So we'll try and be picky and just really go over the good ones.
Do us a solid, obviously. Give us a like, hit the subscribe button if you're watching along here on the Awesemo YouTube page. I understand we have crossed over 65,000 subscribers here on the YouTube page, which is just awesome. But we're greedy, so let's get that to 70. Hit the subscribe button, tell your friends, tell your family, tell anyone you think might be interested, and let's continue to lift those numbers. Like I said, give us a like, and you'll get those notifications when great shows like this one, hopefully, go live, as so many shows do for you throughout the course of the day, every single day of the week, talking all sports. But as Geoff said, as I highlighted, we're talking Jock Market here, looking at really NBA stock market, essentially, if you're new to this, and what makes sense, guys you think will be good plays tonight, guys that you think could be great in-game plays tonight. Be mindful of some of the injuries. We'll talk about key players that are either questionable, probable, projected to be out, whatever it may be over the next little while here, so you can think about, obviously, who's going to step up in a value opportunity. Where I want to begin, though, Moose, I think this is really interesting. You know, you look at some of the studs that are available here tonight. Giannis Antetokounmpo, Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, Anthony Davis, Julius Randle, John Morant, Luka Doncic, Russell Westbrook, Jimmy Butler, James Harden, Karl Anthony Towns, and the list goes on from there, obviously. I'll tell you what, I don't think any of them are in great spots tonight. This is much more of a balanced approach if you were building out a lineup, let's say. I know that's not a Jock Market thing, but if you were building out a lineup, I think it's much more of a balanced pay down kind of night. As that translates to Jock Market, what is your approach to, you know, some of these guys who seemingly are very cost effective?
Yeah, it's like the way the slate breaks down. I mean, we can start at the top, and I don't think you're wrong. I mean, I think you can find fault with a lot of these guys, just and it's not even like the way they're playing. It's just matchups, or in Giannis's case at the top, again, he's playing on a back-to-back. So I think that's going to scare some people off. You know, traditional DFS site, we talk about ownership, but I think in a Jock Market IPO, we'll talk about the fact that maybe people just are going to shy away from paying up for him. I think that actually might be a mistake. I mean, we've got him rated out here. He's obviously the top play, like in the daily market on Jock Market, but we have him rated out slightly higher than his IPO price right now, which is good. I mean, it's a good spot for him. So, you know, that could be a spot where if you put in a bid, I mean, you may get paid off on Giannis, you know, at a lower price than you realize here, just because people are scared away from that. I don't really think it's a big deal. You know, like the Milwaukee Bucks have guys out. I mean, there's a lot of injuries. You know, with that many people out, you know, Lopez, Middleton, you know, this is a really monster spot for him against the Knicks. So I think, again, starting out with Giannis, you may be able to just get in on him a little bit cheaper. And again, with so many studs, it gets spread around a bit. So that's kind of where I would start talking about. I do think this. Again, you know, some of these games definitely have flaws, but I do think this Lakers Heat game, that's probably my favorite, just in terms of like the studs to target there in Jock Market. I really definitely like a couple players in that game.
So let's stay with Milwaukee for a minute. You mentioned it. Chris Middleton's not playing. Brook Lopez is not playing. Of course, the Bucks on the road in New York against the Knicks. Mitchell Robinson questionable in that one with the hip injury for the Knicks. But if we were talking again about standard DFS, you know, you look at what Giannis did last night. Goes off again, 60 plus fantasy points. Here for Jock Market, he's projected for right around 50 points tonight. Fair IPO price on our Awesemo site right now, $15.50. It's not that I think, I guess like part of me, as you brought it up, does worry about the back-to-back a little bit, but then you zero in on obviously who is out, opportunity that presents itself for him. Now, he doesn't have as big a gaping hole on the other side, defensively, as far as the potential offense he could put up. Like last night was just wide open for him. It was a great spot. It was a great matchup. Here tonight, I think the Knicks present a bigger challenge in the middle, so Giannis won't be able to, run free necessarily. But with so much attention on Giannis, if you did want to pivot, wouldn't be the right way to put it, obviously, for the sake of Jock Market. But if you wanted to pay down, if you wanted to look for a guy that could be a cheaper, more logical play, I mean, Bobby Portis is going to be an extremely popular play tonight for people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That was definitely the name I was going to bring up. I mean, Portis kind of does a little bit of everything. I mean, the guy just, when they need him to score, he scores. When you need him to be the rebounder, the guy in the middle. And that's probably what his role is going to be tonight. I mean, he's averaged well over a fantasy point per minute over his last 2 games. He's played, averaged 33 minutes as well. So, I mean, there's like quite a bit of upside here with Bobby Portis in this spot. Maybe it's a little bit tougher matchup too, but again, like the minutes are going to be there for him. And, it's hard to argue with the guy who's kind of been a very consistent fantasy point per minute guy over his entire career. So, just even looking down here, like his fair IPO price on Jock Market today. I mean, I don't even, do you have it in front of you?
Yeah. So $2.60.
Yeah. I mean,
and he's projected for about 30 points.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So that's pretty much all it needs to be said. I think Portis will be popular. We talk about Jock Market. One of the beautiful things about it is you can trade in game too. Maybe you don't get a piece because maybe the IPO on Bobby Portis just goes like so sky high that you don't get a piece. This guy if he starts slow, I would grab him in game. I mean, he's good. The minutes are going to be there. This is still a really close projected game. The Bucks are only 4-point underdogs. You could see the Bucks maybe get down, start slow on a back-to-back, and then pick it up and make it close at the end. I think Bobby Portis is the guy you want to look to tonight for sure.
Another guy, sort of similar mentality, who just, again, I think a lot of people are going to be paying attention to, but if he's under your radar, not you, Geoff, but you, the viewer, the listener out there, someone you might not be thinking about, this Wizards Cavaliers game, all right? Washington's won its last 2, doesn't have Rui Hachimura, personal reasons. Cleveland 4 straight wins. Yes, the Cavaliers team that maybe we need to take somewhat seriously, not as a contender or anything like that, but maybe as a potential playoff team in the East. No Colin Sexton, the knee. Lauri Markkanen remains out. Kevin Love remains out, both health and safety protocols. What about Ricky Rubio tonight?
Yeah, Rubio coming off a good game, if I remember correctly. But I think there's, again, I think the Cavaliers are good targets here. And I'm not sure if they'll necessarily be as popular as a guy like Portis either. He had a bunch of, he had like 8 3-pointers.
Yeah, he went for 60 plus fantasy points on DK anyway for his last effort.
Yeah, I mean, Rubio he's got a pretty solid, usage rate. He's averaging about a fantasy point per minute too, and like Sexton is out. I mean, he's gonna play 30 minutes, right? So
this is another guy, by the way, $3.70 is fair IPO price.
Yeah. So, and I mean, it's not bad. I'm not sure we can definitely give up. We'll look at where we have him in the Awesemo ratings. I kind of am thinking, I mean, we definitely have him a little bit higher than that. So, I mean, he's projecting out as a pretty good target here, but just from the matchup perspective too, I mean, you've got Rubio averaging around a fantasy point per minute now in these kind of spots. He's going to be in an up-paced game. The Wizards play at a decent pace as well. So it's pretty hard to argue against them. I think that if I was targeting a Cleveland Cavalier, I might lean to good God, I've already forgotten my Mobley at
sure.
forward, but
yeah,
that Evan Mobley. I would probably lean to Evan Mobley. So at center, not forward. That's why I was looking under my forward list. But I think it's a really good spot for him.
Power forward spot for him too.
Yeah.
Rubio, by the way, you mentioned him. As far as the Awesemo rankings, $3.07 his fair IPO. He's projected for about 30 fantasy points.
Yeah. So Rubio, I mean, definitely could continue the hot pace. It feels maybe a little bit like chasing points, but again, maybe he's a player you could target in the IPOs or in game, excuse me. And then like if he starts slow, you could grab him. But it's a fast paced game. Like I think at the very least, like with Ricky Rubio, you're probably going to have a good shot of kind of like breaking even, just because he's been so consistent with the minutes of late. And if you go back and look, I mean, he just had a ridiculous return. Obviously, the last time finished second. 500% return. And then he was 83% ROI return a few nights, about 5 nights ago as well. So he's kind of been really boomer bust. Actually, he's had 3 nights of over 100% ROI return on Jock Market over his last 10 games. This could be another spot though. I mean, it does feel like chasing points, but like I said, it's a little bit up-tempo matchup. This is the kind of player who we know can get you those 100% ROI returns. It's really what we're chasing when we're talking about this. Mm-hmm. So I still think I prefer Mobley. His minutes are just like, they're going to be through the roof with the injuries. It's a pretty good matchup it's a really good matchup for him. I think all things considered, that's probably where I would go with the Cavs, but both of those guys very much in play.
As we've talked about, if there's a guy you really like, invest as little as much as you want to some degree anyway, starting shares at $1 all the way up to $25. You can make speculative bids for shares of the backups that you believe will make an impact as well. It's always good to, again, for in-game purposes, or right now, if you're just thinking about the slate and projecting value, like you brought up, obviously the Lakers and Heat earlier when we were talking about that Milwaukee game as well. And this is a game that it doesn't start for another almost 9 hours. So it's quite a ways away. Who knows what's going to change, but there are question marks all over the place. You look at Miami, PJ Tucker, questionable. Tyler Hero, he's questionable. Bam Adebayo, he's questionable. Markieff Morris is out after the next situation. Obviously, his run in there with Nick Jokic, who, by the way, is not playing tonight, serving that 1-game suspension against the Pacers. Victor Oladipo not playing. He remains out with the quad injury. On the Lakers side, Anthony Davis, probable with the thumb, so we expect him to be out there with Russell Westbrook. But again, LeBron James will not be. He's out for some time here, dealing with that abdominal injury. You got Rajon Rondo questionable with the hamstring. If you're just looking at, a game like this, where you've just, again, a litany of question marks on both sides, Is it just a big wait and see for you? Or is there, any, again, speculative bids you're thinking about making this early in the day?
So I really like this spot for Jimmy Butler. Obviously, it would be great if we got like Tyler Hero or Bam Adebayo news on them that they weren't going to play. I think Bam Adebayo definitely is pretty questionable here. You probably have better news. You have probably better info for the people than me on the injury stuff. But just from what I've read, it definitely looks like he's going to be very questionable. But I think Butler, regardless, man. I mean, this is a guy who just obviously, we know he's going to play a ton. It's a big bump in pace for the Heat players too. I mean, no LeBron in this spot. The Lakers come in second in possessions per 48 minutes. Like they just push the pace. And I mean, this is really a spot where we know that Butler can get, can land us those over 50 fantasy points per night. And again, I mean, I'm going to lean on the projections here. Like the Awesemo projections have him as really one of the best targets here at a 10.7 fair IPO price, which is like far below what he is on Jock Market. So all things considered, he's probably my favorite play of the night. Even regardless of who gets ruled in or ruled out, like I think Jimmy Butler is a guy you should be targeting. You look at his performance. He had 3 games there in a row where he was negative ROI, but 5 of his last 8 now he's returned over 40% on the Jock Market streets. We like that consistency. Even with the added players and stuff that Miami's brought in, it's still Jimmy Butler's spot. So I think all things considered, I mean, if the IPO doesn't get too hot, I mean, this is the player I would really target in that game.
So I'm just scanning right now. I mentioned obviously that Jokic is not playing tonight, and
that's a big spot too, obviously.
Well, I mean, it's a huge spot, obviously. When you think about, like, we even spent any time talking about JaMychal Green just yet.
Yeah,
he is.
We'll get there.
Well, I mean, let's get there now, because his fair IPO price is $1.90. He's projected for about 28 fantasy points. I have to look to see, I have to scan to find out where he ranks right now on Awesemo. Well, on Awesemo, those are the numbers on Awesemo. I'm trying to see where he stands on the Jock Market site right now. But this is just an immense value spot for a guy who should start, who should be in a phenomenal spot in this matchup here tonight against the Pacers?
Yeah, no, JaMychal Green, assuming he's available on the site. I mean, yeah, he's a guy who's averaging essentially over a fantasy point per minute. And so he's just a very, consistent player in terms of what he averages when he gets these opportunities, or he has been throughout most of his career, averaging over a fantasy point per game over his last 5 games as well. So, I mean, you don't want to make like bold predictions, but like if he gets less than 20 minutes here, it would be pretty shocking. And it's a good matchup. Like, I mean, it's a pretty good matchup anyways, especially for the power forward center position. So, yeah, Green, all things considered, I think I'd be pretty shocked if you, unless the IPO gets out of control here and like, people just jump on him, then, getting shares of him, it's a pretty safe floor that you're probably not going to end up with like a terrible return. But yeah, definitely in terms of like guys you should be targeting from the fact that, Jokic is out, JaMychal Green. You can also think about Jeff Green though, too.
Yeah.
I mean, Jeff Green going to be, seeing his minutes increase. I mean, he's a player too. Like, I mean, Jeff Green, obviously we know he can really just surprise, kind of come out of nowhere with those big games. That's just kind of been Jeff Green.
Aggravating is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of just been his MO though, his entire career. Right. So I think almost from an upside perspective, like I think Jeff Green will probably be, if I had to guess, maybe the less targeted player here, but I almost kind of like him for that reason. So I think both guys are in play. Obviously Will Barton is kind of the other big news here. Barton is really the guy who, his usage rate and his minutes are going to be locked in this spot. So, against the Heat a few nights ago, or whenever it was, had a monster game with he didn't even have like a big usage rate in those games. So Barton's usage rate, just in terms of like shooting the ball and stuff on the offensive end, going to go way up here. And he's already proven he could be very productive even with a low usage rate. So Will Barton is really the smash play. Green and the two Greens are kind of more of the speculative plays.
So our Awesemo Plus NBA Weekly Express Pass, it's only $4.95. That's it. Not even $5 a week. Very easy to make your money back. I mean, play one head-to-head with a buddy. You can win that using the great Awesemo tools available to you. It's a good way to introduce yourself as well to Awesemo Plus NBA. Included access to NBA DFS projections, some of the stuff that we've been highlighting here, whether it's points or ownership, whatever it may be, lineup builder, you got big board player values, everything that we have to offer. Full, slate, showdown, classic, whatever it may be that intrigues you. Jump into it, learn a lot. If you're on a bit of a budget, now is the time to try out the Awesemo Plus NBA Express. Head over to Awesemo Plus and join as well. Pick up your pass, $4.95. Stop guessing, start winning, and join Awesemo Plus today. We encourage that you do so because, again, I can't sit here and guarantee you're going to win $1 million, but will you win that $5 a week back? Play one lineup. You probably will. Let's keep going here, Geoff, with some of the good, again, bid up options that are available because, we've highlighted the big ones as things stand right now, obviously. Rubio, Portis, the Greens. What about Patrick Beverley? Another guy who's in a really good spot, obviously, in this Minnesota Golden State game.
Yeah, I mean, Beverley, this is a game that, we definitely should talk about a little bit. Obviously, we want to talk about Steph Curry a little bit too, but a 222 over under. It's one of the biggest on the slate. The Warriors, obviously pretty big favorites here. So I guess there's a little bit of blowout worry. Like, does he play full minutes? But Beverley, going up against Steph Curry, I mean, you would expect that this is going to be a fast paced game from him as well. I mean, obviously pretty locked in from like a minute standpoint right now. Definitely seen his minutes go up, even averaging about 29 over his last 3 games. Averaging a little under a fantasy point, per game in that span. But again, I think with the bump in matchup here, this is definitely a spot where I could get on Patrick Beverley. I definitely don't hate it from like a kind of an IPO standpoint. I think we have such a big slate here too that, Beverley is one of those players where, maybe you just throw in a bid and people kind of just maybe just forget about him. So if you're looking for like a basket of players maybe to invest in, it seems like a very, very safe kind of investment here. I don't have his exact projection here up in front of me. I'm not sure if you have it, but how he's rating out just in terms of the.
So we've got him here at Awesemo at $1, the fair IPO price, and projected for about 24, 25 points.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean that seems pretty fair. Again, I mean I just don't feel like he's a player who's going to be getting a ton of heat tonight, which again I think makes him a good IPO bid up here. I mean, this is a game where, again, you want to you're probably going to want some exposure to. And one of those kind of peripheral players probably isn't going to get bid up too much. So, I mean, I think most of the attention in this game obviously going to be on Steph Curry. Does it feel a little bit like chasing points to invest in Steph tonight? Yeah, a little bit, but I mean, he's kind of just like he has that slate breaking ability kind of every night. So you look at his return, it's kind of been a little bit boom or bust. I mean, either he has those monster games and he kind of ends up as like a top player, or he doesn't. But you're obviously going to need a big night here. But we got a big slate. We got Giannis up there. We've got obviously the Lakers. I mean, I think both Davis and Russ Westbrook gonna have some attention to them. I mean, Curry could be had perhaps for a little bit lower. I think that's going to be the theme of the night with a lot of these studs. You may be getting some better value on kind of the guys who aren't getting talked up as much, and that's kind of where I would be looking for at the top too.
So Steph sitting there at about $12 his fair IPO price and projected for about 45 points. Another guy who. And by the way, Golden State, for anyone that has not been watching closely, I mean, even without obviously Klay Thompson, Kevin Durant, as we know, is long gone. This team is not the powerhouse it once was on paper. On the court, though, they're getting it done. 9-1, 6-1 at home, 5 straight wins, best team in the NBA record-wise. Very impressive. And yeah, Minnesota, 5 straight losses. This could get ugly. How about one before we get out of here? This Mavericks Bulls game is interesting. Obviously for Dallas, you got Trey Burke questionable. Maxi Kleber is out. Kristaps Porzingis is out. Bulls, no injury concerns. This is a team that I think a lot of people were kind of rolling their eyes at coming into the year, especially defensively, who they're going to stop. But no doubt about it, there is talent. And a guy who's going to be popular tonight should be popular tonight. What about Zach LaVine? I mean, he's been incredibly consistent. I mean, he's pretty much turned in the same game night after night from a fantasy perspective over the last handful, at least. I could go further back in his log, but how do you feel about him tonight in this matchup?
I mean, it's a pretty solid matchup, right? Like we have a pretty close point spread. The over-unders around 215. Which, is about medium for the slate, or if not even just like slightly above average. So it's not terrible from that perspective. I mean, obviously we have Doncic on the other side, but, LaVine, like you said, he's just been super consistent. I mean, he hasn't had any spike night for basically since the start of the season here, when he had back to last year. I'm looking at really historic logs. Like I think his first game of the year, he returned about a 50% ROI, but then it's kind of been like 10% return, 10% return, minus 19, 6%, 10%. Like he does seem overdue for one of those spike nights, right? I mean, I don't want to play like this guy's due card, but this is a pretty good spot for him, it feels like. And, sometimes these consistent players, they just lull us to sleep. I mean, this is a player who's averaging like 35 minutes per game, has a fantasy point average over his last 5 games here, well over a fantasy point per minute. Good matchup, at least in my opinion, here tonight at home against the Mavericks. I mean, I think with all the attention on Doncic and I mean, like the Mavericks and that side of it, I could definitely get behind. I mean, again, when you're playing Jock Market, I really feel like, and this is true when you're investing in stocks too, you don't necessarily want to go where the crowd is all running. If you crowd into the same stock, what you have a problem is when it's time to get out or when you want to sell, everyone else is selling too, right? What you want to do is you want to buy low and let the people come to you. That kind of feels like the spot with Zach LaVine here. I just don't think there's going to be that much attention on him because when a guy is just that consistent, it becomes boring. And again, we're treating guys like stocks here, players like we're investing in stocks because that's what Jock Market is. It's basically a stock market for DFS. And I mean, I feel like Zach LaVine is just that boring, like blue chip stock right now that you should be investing in this spot. I mean, I think that a spike is probably coming for him eventually. And I mean, look, and I'm not saying he hasn't been spiking. He's been playing good, but I think that monster night eventually will come from him. And he's a good spot.
Geoff, somebody in the chat wrote, eating an Italian beef and watching you guys. And with that, I think we should go. It's lunchtime. It's time to get out of here. We thank you all for being here with us. Tuned in the last half hour or so, talking all things NBA and jock market. Looking ahead to tonight, it's going to be busy. 13 game slate, a lot of tough decisions to make. We wish you all luck though, and look forward to hearing about your successes come tomorrow. Moose and I will be back with you here same time next week, if not sooner, and looking forward to that as well. Thanks to our producer Tyler, and I'm just ready for some basketball tonight. Lock coming up in about 5.5 hours. Geoff, pleasure, man.
Yeah, man. Hope everyone has a good night. Talk to you next week.